Hello, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Monger Podcast, where we go behind the scenes in the cheese world to chat with the people making, selling, or distributing your favorite specialty food products. I'm your host, Janae Muha, certified cheese professional, longtime cheesemonger, and producer advocate. Education in the cheese space has grown exponentially in the last few years, with the internet becoming a more ever-present entity in our lives. From the American Cheese Society exams to college certificate programs, it's easier than ever to lay the groundwork for a well-rounded cheese education. One such program that has leapt into the forefront is the Academy of Cheese out of the UK. Tracey Colley is a founding member of the Academy of Cheese, and she lets us in on all the tiers that the Academy has to offer.
My name is Tracey Colley, and I am the founding director of the Academy of Cheese in the UK. I first got into cheese, unbelievably, when I was a student. I studied textiles, so I did a degree in textiles, which is very similar to cheese and cheese making. You start with a raw product like the cotton or the wool, and then very similar to the milk. And then you take it through these processes and make this amazing product. So, but for my sins, when I was a student, I used to work in a cottage cheese factory. And I worked in the lab, and it was just a job to get some money to pay for the next term at university. And so I was a taste tester, but it was taste testing just when the machines had been washed down. So it wasn't a great experience. And I had to check the weights. So I first of all was in cottage cheese, and then roll on quite a few years. I had my own delicatessen. So I was a cheesemonger for 6 years in Ludlow in Shropshire, which is a really small market town in England. And then after that, I went and worked for the biggest cheese distributor in the UK, Harvey and Brockless. They sold specialty foods. I always compare them to, in America, to similar to Gourmet Foods International. Much smaller than those guys, but they distribute across the whole of the UK, and we had a massive cheese range, sort of 3,000 cheeses, from block cheddar, cottage cheese, right the way through to beautiful little artisan goat's cheeses. While I was there, we started to set up the Academy of Cheese, and I became one of the founding directors on a volunteer basis, and Harvey and Brockless supported that. I went traveling for 6 months, woohoo, in my camper van, gave up my job. And when I came back, I became operations director of the Academy of Cheese. And that's where I am now.
Wonderful. That leads right into my second question of what is the Academy of Cheese? And well, you just gave us how did it start, but what was the impetus behind it? Like what made you think that this was a necessary thing?
Okay, so we're back to you guys in the US, because Mary Quick, who we were just chatting about previously, had been out with Tom Chatfield. She'd been out to the ACS and to the conferences, and she'd been to the Cheesemonger Invitational, and she'd seen the power of your CCP certification. Working with Whole Foods, she was selling her cheese into Whole Foods stores across the US, and she saw the power of education for cheesemongers, and how much difference that could make to them as people, as to, for their pride and for their, making cheese a real job. Because a lot of people, they still ask me now, well, what do you do? And you go, all right, hold your breath. I work in cheese. And
it's
like,
a college job for many people. Yeah. They're like, oh, I did that in college. I'm like, well, here I am 23 years later, still
doing it for real. Yeah. Exactly. So, so Mary came back to the UK, and she spoke to me, and she spoke to a number of people in the industry who were key people working in the industry in the UK. And we looked at the CCP, and we talked to the people running that at the time, whether that's what we should bring to the UK. It wasn't going to work out at that moment, so we looked at the Wine and Spirits Educational Trust program of education as well, so training people in wines. And theirs was a tiered structure of education. So that's what we started to develop. So we've worked with the local authorities here in the UK. We've created certifications for people working in cheese. It's not, it is a tiered structure. So it starts at level one, level two, level three, and culminates in Master of Cheese. We It isn't just for cheesemongers though. We very, very quickly saw there was lots of interest from the cheese makers, from the wholesalers. So I was working for a wholesaler distributor at the time. They were very keen to train their staff. Um, we started to roll out level one in 2016 and very quickly realized that cheese lovers and cheese consumers wanted to know more as well. So we get a lot of those at level one studying with us, which is fantastic. Some move on to level two, not so many. But it's one of those things where if the consumer is knowing, more about the products and the history and the culture, then they're going into the cheese shops and asking the right questions, and that interest is selling more cheese as well. So that was the mission and the aim, really, to make really great cheese, more asked for and more in demand.
Amazing. I love that consumer component because it helps so much when you're behind the counter to have someone who has a little bit more knowledge behind them. Not that I don't love helping someone who has no idea what they want, but when someone has a little bit more knowledge, I feel like they tend to be even a little bit more open-minded with what they're willing to try, just because they're like, okay, well, I've done some research and I kind of know what I like, but like, let's see what's going on. So that's really cool. I
Yeah,
like that.
those are the ones you can take to even higher levels. You
Exactly.
can really throw that unusual cheese at them, and they understand a bit. What I've really loved as well about the consumer element is people living in the cities. They don't see the farms, they don't see the sheep and the animals. They're in inner city London, or wherever they are, and they're working there, and this gives them a little cheese, gives them that little taster and that little, can, and if we can train them and help them to understand that, they can get that little bit of the countryside in their inner city life as well. So we love that.
Yeah, and I feel like cheese also provides a little bit of everyone's interest where like not only does it taste good, but you've got a little bit of agriculture, there's science, there's art. Like there you can find a way basically to connect with someone on any level that they might be interested in, which is why I am still in this business because there's so many things that you can rabbit hole down. So being able to connect with people on those all those different areas is really wonderful.
That is so true. That is absolutely so true. And those are the each level of the Academy of Cheese is modular. So all of those things are covered within the modules. So you start with milk production. You start with the animal types, the breeds of the animals. Then you go on to cheese making, maturation, and affinage. There's a module on the history and the culture. Then there's a module on tasting. Then there's one on pairing and understanding why things pair, with each other, and what's good, some suggestions. What other modules have we got? Then we have the cheese library module, which at level one is 25 cheeses, the iconic ones. Quite a few European PDOs in there. Um, then we go up to level two is another 75 cheeses you get to learn about and taste if you can. And then at level three, it's another 200 cheeses. So as a cheesemonger, all those cheeses on the counter. People go, "Oh, it's 100 cheeses. How do you know them all?" But you just do. They become your babies, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that kind of sort of answered what my next question was, is what the curriculum looks like. And then how did you figure out where to start with all of the modules?
Well, we have it's been the contributors that have worked on the program have all got educational and training backgrounds as well as cheese backgrounds. As so, it was very well thought out. We also worked with an academy here in the UK, a food academy, who were used to developing learning, standards and learning outcomes. So it's very structured. It's really structured. And as part of your delegate pack that you get when you study with this, you get the standards and the learning outcomes. So you know what you're supposed to be, what you will have learnt by the time you finish that module. So we work with lots of experts. So on the team that was at the very start of the Academy of Cheese was Ros Windsor, who was at the time managing director of the Paxton and Whitfield, which is the oldest cheesemongers in the UK. They've been going for 200 years. They celebrated last year or the year before their 200 years. They supply cheese to the royal family. It's this iconic building in Jermyn Street in London. So Ros was the managing director, and we've been lucky enough to have her on board from the very beginning, and she's still on board with us now. We have Charlie Turnbull, who is originally a cheesemonger, but just all round cheese geek. He is the compere at the World Cheese Awards every year and does various things for us with the Academy of Cheese. And he's one of the directors and one of the people that helped put together the content. Paul Thomas, he was the technical director, so a cheese maker, knows absolutely everything about making. One of those people, you ask him a question about cheese making and he knows the answer without even getting a book out. I love those people. I wish I was one of those
Yeah,
people.
I cannot be one of those people.
No, me neither. But I admire him greatly, and he's a fantastic resource for the academy. His life has changed, so he's moved to Berlin now and is making cheese in Berlin. So we've now got Katie Fennick, who also studied, came and did a sabbatical actually during the pandemic in America at Jasper Hill. So she's all round cheese making geek, and she's now stepping into his shoes. So that's very exciting for us. So, and another generation. So nice to bring the next. My passion is to keep bringing in the young people and showing them you've been in it 23 years. I think I've been in it nearly 20. And you just want the young people to come in, don't you, and see what an amazing industry it is.
Absolutely. Like that's one of my favorite things about the cheese industry is how welcoming it is and how much people want to welcome more. So I love it.
Yeah, and share their knowledge as well. I mean, we have the Specialist Cheesemakers Association in the UK, which is just for the obviously for the specialist cheesemakers. But between them, they all love sharing all of their knowledge. You get them together in a room. They do the annual farm visit. You get them all there, and they're all like whispering away about, oh yes, I've done this with my culture, and I've done this with my maturing room, and it's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, I always laugh when my husband has to, and we've been together for just as long as I've been in cheese. But he loves cheese and he has picked up a lot of knowledge from it. But when we start going, he's just kind of like, okay. But I
Okay,
do the
I'm
same thing
off.
when he's talking about music too. So I'm kind of like, okay, whatever. But he's had the pleasure of like, going through tastings at Uplands and he's just like, I don't know, they all taste great to me.
Yeah, we call them the cheese widows and the cheese widowers because they're just like my husband is the same. He actually works in dairy, but he's an engineer, and it's so true. They kind of like, oh, here she goes again. But
Thankfully,
they
they
don't
love us.
mind when we bring them lovely cheese home, do they?
Exactly. I'm always like, I don't get paid much, but I get paid in cheese. And so we always have good cheese around the house. Very
Yeah.
spoiled in that respect.
Fantastic, fantastic.
One of the things that I find interesting in talking to you, it feels like the Academy of Cheese is kind of a in between of like what the CCP is and also what a sommelier is. Because the CCP, we don't really get the like you have specific cheeses that you have to like learn about or whatever.
Yeah,
And it's a an overarching industry test. But I really like this idea of having like very specific um, cheeses that you need to do. And I've worked in, counters that had wine, that we sold wine to. And I remember having quite a few people who were going through their sommelier tests that would come in and want like blind wines, like we would put them in a bag so they couldn't see what it was, like that sort of thing. Like I've
that's
seen that sort
cool.
of thing happen. So and I think that the taste test here, or sensory evaluation test, I know some people have kind of studied like that, where I was working behind a counter and a friend was going through it, and she would call and have someone else blind like wrap up cheeses for her, so she could just taste them totally blind.
With
But I love this idea of having the specifics. Can you talk about more about that process of like how people go through that process
Yeah,
usually?
sure. So there are, I mean, which kind of leads on to how people study with us, because this is where it really grew during the pandemic, because you can self-study with us. So from the very beginning, thank goodness, we had e-learning. So we'd created everything. So you get an online textbook, you get the cheese library, which is actually not a room with lots of gorgeous cheese in. Sadly, it is a digital library. I did a presentation once for a grant that we were applying for, an award for some money to keep us going, and it was these guys, and they were like, "So where is the cheese library?" I was like, "Oh, it's online. I'm
It's your
sorry." They were
local
so
cheese shop.
disappointed.
It's your
Yeah,
local cheese
your
shop.
local cheese shop, definitely. See, I should have had that. Um, so you can do the self-study, which is great, and you can do that from anywhere in the world. So it really opened up who could study with us. So we've now got people studying level one with us in 81 countries, which is amazing. So we have a CRM system so we can see where they study from, which is great. You can also study in virtual classrooms. That came out of the pandemic as well. Suddenly everybody had to use Zoom and learn. And I persuaded some of our training partners and our trainers who train the courses for us. I persuaded them to go online and do the virtuals. Now, what they were doing was they were sending out boxes of the 25 cheeses, or what we say is you've got to try and taste at least 50%, so at least 12 or 13 of the cheeses. Some of them you're going to have in your fridge anyway. There's like feta on there and mozzarella and block cheddar. You're going to have those in your fridge every day, hopefully, as an ingredient or for your sandwiches. Um, so we would send out cheese boxes because that was still happening, um, to the to the to the to the learners, to the students, and then they would come into the virtual classroom and then taste together alongside with the tutor. Um, the other way, obviously, is traditional classroom classes where you go into a venue and you get taught by the trainer in a classroom. And in those situations, they often have more of the cheeses available on that day. So sometimes the whole 25 cheeses. If those are done over a period of time, they'll have certain cheeses. So that's the fantastic side of it. That's the homework that absolutely everybody loves.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
That's good
Um,
homework.
yeah, it is really good homework, isn't it? And it's been a bit more tricky, to be honest, for overseas, because some of the cheeses it's harder for them to find. But we have really determined students, and they go out there and they search for these cheeses and they track them down, and we love it. But what we say is, because we have a classification system, which is our own model called the make post make system, and what we say is, if you can get a cheese, which is basically the style of cheese, if you can get a cheese that's a similar style, obviously you can't have Brie de Meaux, raw milk breeze in the States. So if you can get a similar style cheese, then that's fine. You can taste that. It's all about looking at the cheeses in the library. The library has all of the details, anything you would want. And the library we're so proud of, because what we've done is we've worked with the actual cheese makers to get the information. So the information is correct at the time of, we try to update it all the time because things change all the time, but we love it because it's correct. There's history on there, there's the milk type, there's the breed, the region, the PDO, the PGI, whatever it is, the protected status. Then we do a little bit about the make process. We do a little bit about what pairs with it. And then we've got this amazing new feature, which I'm sorry, I'm so geeky, I'm so excited
I
about,
love it.
is we've got a download PDF of each cheese now button. So you can just press that button and it comes out this beautiful page about that cheese, which is such a great resource for chefs. Choose the cheese board, stick it up on the notice board. As you know, these are our, to the maitre d', to the waiters, to the sommeliers, these are the cheeses on the cheese board this month. Learn them, they're there as you walk past. Learn another fact.
That's
So
amazing,
we
because I would
really,
I would make a folder of that for my behind the counter if I was still working behind the counter, and as a great
yeah,
resource for people who are just learning their way around the cheese counter.
yeah. And you can do cheese of the week. So cheese of the week, so you can print that out, laminate it, put it up on the counter. People standing in the queue can read a little bit about cheese of the week. So it's there for people to use, and we're so proud of that. We have got a level 3. There's 10 American cheeses as well that we study. So we have been recognized. This is probably really important that I haven't said already. So the American Cheese Society have recognized the Academy's study for the CCP. So if you're studying CCP, I know you've already done yours, and good, and whoa, so amazing. No mean feat at all, is it? It's like a real challenge to get that. Um,
I'm just
but
glad it
you
was
can,
years ago for me now. So
yeah, you
I'm
can
like,
relax.
yeah.
You can relax. I know. But they've recognized the Academy of Cheese certifications as the hours towards your 2,000 hours that they need to study. You need to study to get your CCP.
Oh
So
wow.
you can count the Academy certifications. All right, you've got to pay for them, but at least it gives it that a bit of structure and some great information. So I think we've had quite a few sign up and are loving it.
Awesome. Um, I mean, that was a great rundown of, like, I feel like I understand it a lot better now, and I love it. I love it. Um,
Good.
what is this? How do you think that the certification is looking to benefit cheesemongers and or employers? Like, what is the we've been talking about this a lot in the CCP world of, like, how is this benefiting people outside of, like, having a few letters behind their name? Like, what are the benefits that you've seen and you hope to see with people getting these certifications?
So I think the one thing that shines through for me is pride in their work. So people are, there's a lot. I'm of the older generation of cheese people in the UK, and the younger people coming through, the Academy of Cheese is all they've known. So it's something that they can really get hold of, and they get their pin badge and they get their certificate, and it gives them that sense of pride of saying, this is a real job, mum. And I'm working really hard behind the cheese counter, and it is worthwhile me doing. But I also think there's so many skills, it is for if I was an employer to put my people through it, is many of the skills that we're teaching them are to be able to talk proficiently about the cheeses, to use a vocabulary, especially during the pandemic. The vocabulary that we use within the tasting modules is phenomenal because you couldn't taste cheese with people during the pandemic. You had to be able to describe it. So we found that really came into its own then, but it should be all the time because people can then relate to that. And as you said, you can get into the nitty gritty of any person because you can talk. If you know about that cheese, you know about where it's from. So, you can say to me, "Oh, Tracy, you're Shropshire born and bred. Ah, Shropshire Blue, what about that?" And you can start a conversation. So I think it gives them confidence. Um, we do a lot on there's a module which I've admitted before on regulation and good practice. So there's the science of cheese, but there's also the rules and regulations around handling it safely. And to be able to do that, we know it's a real hands-on job. People don't realize it's not like selling clothes. You have to get your hands dirty and you have to wash up a lot. And you have to be wary of those very sharp knives. But that drama and that I love the drama behind it as well. And you have said before, you find there's a lot of people that are creative of cheesemongers or cheese makers because it is creating something and it's selling that creation and performing to tell the story behind it. So I think, yeah, there's a lot that you can get from all the different modules. Some people find, buying and distribution is, we always go, "Oh, who wants to know about buying and distribution?" But there are people, and the chill chain of how the cheese should be delivered safely from the cheese maker, from the farm gate, all the way through to the end consumer. And it's so important and across all of the people working in the industry, not just cheesemongers. So yeah, we feel it is being valued. And I think there is always value in some element. I mean, I took it as a guinea pig at the very beginning, and I was like, "Oh, I better swat up." And it was tough, It is like the people that have worked in the industry and take the exam and take the course, they say it's been really useful because it's compartmentalized all their knowledge. So it's actually, yeah, I know all that, but I didn't know that's where it sat in the industry. And that's been really good. So I think there's always more to learn, isn't there? Oh my gosh,
So
there's so
much.
many cheeses, so many cheeses.
And I mean,
I know.
still so many different things. I've had the pleasure of going to multiple cheese counters and spending time behind their counters, and everybody does things a little bit different. I mean, granted,
Oh,
the sanitation and things have to be kept to the same level, but everybody kind of does things a little bit different and how they like things done. So it is really interesting, and I will be one of those nerds that is interested in distribution because I find it immensely interesting how we move food around, especially in the United States, where it's such a huge
yeah,
place. And, all the British cheeses and whatnot all come into the same place, but how do
yeah,
they get distributed across the country? I find it immensely interesting, but that is
yeah. And you've
also
got
my
parts,
nerdiness.
yeah, but you've got parts of that where, um, you know, we were talking before about quicks and their cheddars. If they're being shipped to Australia, they have to go on a boat and it takes a long time to get there. So the age profile of that cheese is completely different to it, the age profile of the one that's going to be sent to London. So, I love all that. I love that geekiness. We have created an amazing competition called Affaner of the Year as well. I don't know if you've seen that on our socials and on
I
our
have.
website.
It's been really fun watching.
Yeah, and that's going again this year. We're at it. We're about to the cheddars have been maturing since July last year, and there's 11 cheddars being matured in all different places across the UK. The Stiltons go out in a couple of weeks, and they have to pierce the Stiltons themselves.
Oh,
So
wow.
they really get deep down and dirty into affinage with the Stilton. Um, it's amazing the community spirit it's all the mongers, the famous mongers in London are all competing against each other. And it's wonderful. They all get together in this room for one afternoon and one evening, and we judge them all. And we've got Baron by Gods, which is a like a brie replica over here in from Suffolk, and then we've got Solstice, which is like a little 180-gram washed rind, washed in Somerset cider brandy traditionally. So they're all getting those at 2 days old to do whatever they're going to do with them. So it's very exciting.
That is very exciting. It's also like I'm thinking about like who in the United States we obviously have a lot of people working in affinage in the United States, but
Yes,
none that have like I mean, we have a couple that we would consider to be kind of like the I'm trying to think of the right word. Um, that are more out
experts.
there,
Yeah,
like Josh Windsor from Murray's. Like he is kind of the face of
yes.
affinage in the United States right now. Um, and it's funny because I spent a month in October working at Uplands and during Rush Creek season. And what we were doing was affinage and working with the ladies there. We went to like Wisconsin Cheese had a big party and one of them was like, "So, do I tell people that I am an affineur at Uplands?" And I'm like, "Yes, you absolutely do tell
So
people
we
that because that
are.
is what you
Yeah.
do." Like, it
Be
becomes such a
proud.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
be proud of that. And also, it becomes such a like, that's just what you do every day. So it doesn't feel like, I don't know, in certain circles, it's like something
Yeah.
special, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I get that. I really get that because in the UK we don't really have affineurs. It's funny, isn't it? Whereas in Europe, all of the Gruyères go to an affineur to be matured. Whereas here, we do have affineurs, but it's not such a big thing. And that was the whole point of the competition, was to break the barriers of what affinage is and make people realize how important it is as part of the cheese making process. It's another part of that cheese's life, a big important part, and really celebrate that. So it's only in its third year this year, so it's still very young, but we'd like to, push it out into other countries as well. So because it's very exciting, and we have cheese makers as well that get involved and cheesemongers. So I don't think we've got anybody that just affineurs in the UK at all. So
Well, this is just the call to action then from the US that we need to start an affinage competition
yeah,
project.
I'll help you with it, no problem.
Great. We love that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fantastic. The excitement on the day when they open those cheeses, when they open the Stiltons, it's hilarious because it's like, oh, it is blue.
it worked.
It has gone blue. Oh my God. And then it's like, oh, but it's not that great. There's a lot to learn on the blues.
Oh, yeah, just across the board, there's just a lot to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what's next for the Academy of Cheese? I mean, you got
Oh,
the
what's
Affineur
next?
competition and yeah,
Yeah,
what's going
yeah.
on?
So the other competition we have, which is we had Jake Heller from Philadelphia in our finals last year. So is Young Cheesemonger of the Year. And we really want more entries from the US because it was fantastic. So basically, the World Cheese Awards happens every year, and everybody sends in there's 4,000 cheeses. Have you ever been to the World Cheese Awards?
I have not.
No, so it's in different countries every year. This 2023, it was in Norway.
Yes.
The year before, it was in Wales.
Yes.
The year before, it was in northern Spain, I think. So it travels around. We don't know where it's going to be this year yet. The contracts are in the cogs of, but the Guild of Fine Food run the World Cheese Awards, and they give us a slot to run Young Cheesemonger of the Year. So basically, cheesemongers send in, there's an application on our website, really easy. You can do it online. It's on our website, and they have to be under 30 years of age, and they do what their dream cheese board is, or they have the question they have to ask around a cheese board, and then we have a team of judges that judge all the applications, and then we have 6 finalists that come to the World Cheese Awards to compete. And at the finals, they have to do wrapping, cutting skills with blind, with no scales. So they have to get nearest to the weight. They have to talk about their cheese board. And then there's a quiz, a 10-question quiz about cheeses. So it was brilliant. We had loads of entries from we had probably about 20% of the entries last year were from the US. So really pleased about that. Culture Magazine do a little bit for us on their socials, and Janet Fletcher, who's your wonderful blogger, I suppose, isn't she? And
Yeah, our cheese
presenter in
writer. Yeah.
California,
Yep.
cheese writer. Yeah, love Janet. She did a little piece for us and pushed it out, so we got a lot of entries, so that's great. But when we know where it'll be much more useful to make the call for entry. So that's going on. We are slowly, the level 3 modules, there's 13 modules in all. You have to study 8 of those for your level 3, and then Master of Cheese, you have to study the rest of them, and then you have to do a blind taste test. You have to put in a dissertation around whatever cheese topic you want, and put together a portfolio of your work, of what you've done in your cheese life, basically. So we're trying to get that to the end of its to culmination. We're hoping we'll have Masters of Cheese by the end of this year or early next. So that's the goal. That's where we're heading. And amongst all of that, we have people asking us for webinars, and we do have loads of free stuff that people do, loads of free webinars so people can join from all over the world, and they do, which we love. And then on our website, there's loads of downloadable knowledge 101s on all the modules. So loads of stuff on there, and we're keeping that all up to date. So yeah, never stop.
Amazing. I love it. I mean, I obviously started in cheese in the early 2000s, like 2002.
Yeah,
And gosh, what I would have given for much of this readily available information those days, because we did not have
yeah,
nearly as much. When I started, it was
me too.
the cheese primer with Steve Jenkins, and by the time I came around to getting into cheese, that book had been out since 95 and was already like well out of date, and many of the things were not being imported into the United States anymore. And the bones were there, of like cheese
Mm,
making and things like that. But wow, to have something just at your fingertips like that, like what amazing thing. And it's we're seeing so much more of it too. Like, I'm also part of Cheese State University through Wisconsin
okay,
Cheese, which is a great thing, and I think kind of similar to like the modules that you guys have set up. They have similar to that, and it's pretty amazing to have all this information. I love it.
it is, and that's how it should be, isn't it? I mean, what the aim is to be is to have, where you've got those supermarkets and you've got all those wines from all over the world. That needs to be the cheese counter as well. Well, and all of those beers and everything else, now that's grown, the craft beers. We want those cheeses, not just the blocks and the slices. We want those really great cheeses and celebrate them. So, but it's technology has helped, hasn't it? We've got, internet has really moved it all forward, and we're forever grateful for that during the pandemic, really, which helped the academy survive, because we run as a not-for-profit, not-for-profit business, so we run it like a charity. All our directors are volunteers. I'm paid 3 days, and then I have a marketing girl 3 days, Katie, our cheese scientist, 3 days, and then an admin assistant, and that's it. So it's but it's thanks to our supporters and our sponsors, and the internet really has helped massively because what would we have done during the pandemic?
Well, and also you said that people are studying from what 81 different countries. Like how could you
Yeah,
possibly have that without the internet? Like what a
you couldn't. Yeah.
that's just amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. We've got training partners on the ground in various countries. So we've got Australia and New Zealand, but they're far and few between. We're still building that. And that's one of the missions. And we really would like some training partners on the ground in in the US as well. So that's on my sort of mission list this year to find out those because a lot of your trainers are mongers as well, aren't they? People, your education, people who teach cheese are mongers as well and do it as part of their job, don't they?
Yeah. A lot of
So
times.
yes, yes, always training
Wearing
on
all
the
the
job's
hats.
great. Yeah, exactly. You especially. I know.
Well, I have a few questions that I always ask people at the end of our podcast recording. And so the first one is, what is your current cheese crush? What cheese are you loving on these days?
Changes all the time. It changes.
That's why I
I
said
mean,
current.
I know, and it changes from season to season. Do you know what I got in London the last time I was in London? You're gonna love this because it was so expensive, but I got a tiny piece of Rogue River Blue.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God, I love it so much. It's got so many flavors, the length of flavor and the way it changes with the flavors and those vine leaves soaked in the it's soaked in the alcohol and just it's so lovely. But we have a very similar cheese that's being made in the UK now, not without the wrapping of the with the vine leaves, Pevensey Blue. And if I can get hold of that, I love that. It's very tiny producer. So yeah, I have to yeah, I should be British, shouldn't I?
I said current. You can love
I
your
know.
British cheese all the time, but
Yeah.
if you can get your hands on a little Rogue River during the season,
Oh,
you might as
don't.
well, right?
Exactly, exactly. And it was in supreme, perfect condition as well.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. What's your favorite pairing? Just across the board.
Parents,
Yeah.
oh, do you know what? I really love a porter, a very dark porter ale. And I love that with blue cheese. I love, and I was just talking to what a lady this morning actually about it. I love the creamy, so camemberts and bries, but I love it with a chili jelly. So a really spicy chili jelly, chili jelly, chili jelly, um, savory jelly, so it's hot. But we've also got, and I don't know if you've got this in the States, but we've got hot honey
Uh-huh.
where they are infusing honey. It probably came from the States, the trend. They're infusing it with the single variety chilies. So I've got bought some of that for Christmas by Patrick McGuigan, who's one of our experts, and that is divine. That's just lovely with everything. Goat's cheese with blue cheese.
It is good with everything.
Yeah.
I have a friend who makes like a bunch of black garlic type stuff. So they sell
Oh,
black
love
garlic,
black
but
garlic.
he makes a black garlic honey, and it is one of the best things that I have ever had just paired with cheese across the board. Like it doesn't matter
Oh,
what cheese it is. It's phenomenal with
wow.
everything.
A
Gives that
black
nice kind of
garlic
like,
honey.
yeah, it's delightful. It's
Oh,
delightful.
yeah. I can imagine that smoky,
Umami, little sweetness.
yeah.
But I've tried it
Oh,
with
we
so
need
many
that
different
over here.
cheeses. Yeah, I've had it with so many different cheeses. I pretty much put it on everything and it works on everything.
Fantastic.
So
That's
I
what
love
we
the
need. I
infused
love that.
honeys.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. I'm going to look out for that. We need it
Hopefully you
over
can
here.
find it. I don't know if they ship
I'm not, yeah.
across the way, but next time I see you in the States, I'll make sure to have a little black garlic
D
honey in my
Definitely. I'm
backpack
coming
for
your
you.
way. I'm coming your way, girl.
And then the last one is your best cheese memory. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a time where you were eating cheese specifically, but it could be just with people. Where's your cheese sanctuary
I
that you go
think,
to in your brain?
do you know what I think was the most vivid, awesome sort of uh religious moment was going the first time into a Grana Padano maturing caves and just going, "Whoa," the scale and the size, the aroma, but just that scale and that light, and that was my moment. The first time I did that was just unbelievable, absolutely awesome. So I think that is still in my memory and remains there forever. We have a lot of cheese parties, so they are high up there on those lists, especially traveling with the cheese World Cheese Awards. We have a lot of those fantastic, but that is my one wow kind of religious moment with cheese.
That's amazing. I will say that
What's yours?
I have so many, but I do agree that like your first time walking into one of those caves that's just like racks upon racks.
I
I
know.
My husband and I went on a vacation in 2011, and we went to the Cultbach Caves of Gruyere,
Oh,
and it was a
fantastic.
whole mess getting there because it was pre GPS on your phone. Like we had like
Uh,
MapQuest sort of things, and we could not find this place, and we were freaking out. And then we saw an Emmy plant, and so we just went in there. We're like, we don't know where we're going, we don't know what we're doing. So we just went in there and started talking to somebody, and luckily they spoke English, and they sent one of their like little office lackey guys to like for us to follow behind. So we followed him up to the caves because they told me specifically, like, if you don't show up at this time, this is the only English tour that we have. And so you're just going to miss out if you don't get there. So I was stressed. We got there
oh,
like
bless.
right before they closed for lunch. And then, like, thankfully, we got there on time. They were all like, "What are you freaking out about?" I'm like
Yeah,
panting, like,
I've
"Oh my
come
God,
from
time to make
America.
it."
I've come from America.
And they
Yeah.
were like, "No, you've got like 2 hours or something." Because I thought we were late. And they're like, "No, you've got like 2 hours." I'm like, "Okay, great. I don't care now that we can just like sit in our car while you guys have lunch. That's fine." Just knowing that I'm here. And then being
Good,
able to like
yes.
walk into those like just massive walls of Gruyere, and like there's something that changed my palate in that too, of like I think there's
Yeah.
something about walking um into those rooms. And I saw it happen this last fall when I went to Neil's yard, and we
Oh,
went to
wow.
we
To
went
the
to
arches.
yeah, we went to the
Did you go in the
arches.
arches?
Yep. And then one of my friends was competing in Mondial, and her husband came
Ah,
along too. And before this trip, he was a little more discerning about what he tried. And now he's like super open to trying everything because it just like being over there, trying all these things over there just kind of changed his palate in a certain way. And I felt that with the first time I went to Europe too, is I felt like my palate changed of like things that I didn't necessarily love before. I was like, okay, now that I love
yeah.
it. So
Now
it's
you
just
get
really
it.
interesting
You
how
get it.
travel
Yeah.
can change how you taste things.
Yeah. And I think in the respect, you have that ultimate respect as well of like, you get your delivery of your wheel of cheese into the cheesemongers, into the deli, and you're like, oh, another one to cut up. But when you see them all like that, it's like, oh my God, someone has to look after these. And there's almost like this religious silence, isn't it? It's like going into a church and seeing these, whoa.
Yeah.
I know, but fantastic, amazing that you got to go to the Gruyere Caves and those tastings, and they just, like you say, it's their job and they take it all for granted, and we're all like, woo!
It is always funny when like tours come through in these different places. And you can always see the workers that are always kind of like, what is the big deal? Like, we're just here
Yeah,
doing our job. And these people
job
are like
every
taking
day.
pictures of everything.
Yes, yes.
Like, this is a
Oh,
big deal.
that's human beings, though, isn't
It
it?
is.
Yeah.
So where can people find more information about the Academy of Cheese?
Okay, really simple. It's academyofcheese.org.
I love
So,
it.
yeah, that's it. Um, and it is website based, but the courses are live, but all the information is on the website and you can steer around that, see the cheese library, download those PDFs, and study with us, you know. But if you don't want to study, join the webinars, register because we do a monthly newsletter, which tells you about the different webinars going on. They're on Zoom usually. We're doing some educational ones with Bosca. We're doing just trade webinars as well. But there's always something to join. And we do sell tickets for AFNA of the year. So you can come to London. You can come and be there for that day. It is the most awesome day, and it's in June, so it's usually really warm as well.
I don't know. I was there in September and it was 90 degrees, and I was like, I'm not built for this.
Oh
I was
no,
like, it's gonna be great in London. It's gonna be just like home.
just cool.
And then
Yeah,
no, it was
autumny.
not.
No, sorry.
It's your fault
Yes,
personally,
we love
Tracey.
it. We love it. We love it when it's hot.
Yeah, see, I'm a Pacific Northwesterner to my core, and I
Yeah,
don't do well with the heat. I had my little personal fan that I had on me all the time, and people were like,
yeah,
"Wow, that's a great idea." I'm like, "Uh-huh, yeah, got the
yeah.
smarts."
Especially on the underground. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
avoid that.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me about the Academy of Cheese, and I'm really excited. I'm gonna get in there soon to go see
Yeah.
all the amazing things happening.
Yeah, just come and register and join in when you can. It's all good fun and it's educational all the way. We try to make everything educational, but we have loads of fun and loads of really lovely cheesemakers all over the world to celebrate and enjoy. So, but thank you so much for your time and lovely to meet you finally on
I
the
know.
Zoom.
Finally.
Yes, yeah. Tom was waxing lyrical about you, so it's really good to meet you. Thank you. And thank you for the podcast.
Minimizing the barrier to entry in the cheese world helps us all out, and I am so excited that the landscape for learning is becoming more vast and varied. Thank you, Tracey, for helping start such a wonderful program that is helping cheese professionals around the world. This podcast is recorded, produced, and edited by me, Janae Muha. Musical credits to my husband, Ben Muha. If you want to continue the conversation, find me on Instagram or Facebook. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite listening platform so more people can find this podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember to keep spreading the word of good curd.